Welcome to the Lunch and Learn with Dr. Barry. This is episode number 20.
Thanks for listening to the Lunch and Learn with Dr. Barry, here to help educate, motivate, and put you on the right path to take control of your health through weekly discussions on topics in the medical field, public health arena, and in your community. And now your host, Dr. Barry.
Welcome to the Lunch and Learn today with Dr. Barry. We're going to be discussing skin cancer. And for today's show notes, please go to drpierresblog.com/LLP020. Again, if you want today's show notes, please go to drpierresblog.com/LLP020. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about skin cancer. We're going to be giving some fun facts on skin cancer. What are your risk factors? Why sunscreen is so important? And most importantly, especially for my African American community, why being African American does not excuse you, one, from using either sunscreen or getting your skin checked on at least a year or two basis. So again, great episode on skin cancer to kind of like commemorate Melanoma and Skin Cancer Detection Month. Stay tuned for another great episode. Today, what are we talking about? We're going to talk about skin cancer. And, why are we talking about skin cancer? Because one, this is National Melanoma / Skin Cancer Month. So we got to be very excited about that. Hey, Amanda, for joining. Hey, okay, what's going on? Appreciate you for joining. We're talking about skin cancer today. So we're talking about, we're talking about risk factors. We're going to talk about certain types of skin cancers. Why should everybody be really concerned about skin cancer? So let's just kind of give a little quick rundown of what skin cancer is, right? So for those who may not be aware, skin cancer is actually the most common form of cancer in the United States, right? Actually, in my private group, I actually asked this question, and I had a lot of people, I put the common ones: breast, lung, prostate, and a lot of people chose those, but it's actually skin cancer. Skin cancer, we get about 5.5 million cases on average per year of new cases of skin cancer. And the most common is basal cell carcinoma. The second most common is squamous cell carcinoma. Basal cell accounts for almost about 3 to 4 million new cases. Squamous about 1 million new cases every single year. Right? So so if you don't get anything from this video today, the most common form of cancer in the United States, especially a new form of cancer, is skin cancer, like by and far, and it's like the numbers aren't even really close. So when we talk about skin cancer, what are we talking about? We got about 4 types of skin cancers. One, actinic keratosis. 2, we've already talked about our basal cell carcinoma. 3 are squamous cell carcinoma. Now, from a skin cancer standpoint, the basal cell and squamous cell are the 2 most common types of cancer here in the U.S. And then 4, melanoma. And the problem with melanoma probably accounts for, from the studies and what I've been reading, about less than 1% of all skin cancers total, right? Less than 1% of all skin cancers are due to melanoma. The only problem is that melanoma causes a majority of the deaths, right? So again, you got this thing where, yes, it's not as frequent. I think we should be very happy that it's not as frequent. But because it's not as frequent, it causes, the vast amount of death, like here in the United States, right? So definitely something that, we don't want to, we can't take for granted. So let's give some numbers. 1 in 5 Americans in the United States will, in one point or the other, develop skin cancer in their lifetime. 1 in 5, 20% of Americans, right? 90% of the non-melanoma, so that's, basal cell, squamous cell carcinomas, are going to be due to exposure of UV radiation. What's the biggest UV radiation? The sun, right? So, and the sun, and then our tanning beds, tanning beds has gotten so popular. Tanning beds got so popular. So 90% of our cancer cases, that are especially the non-melanoma cancer cases, are due to sun exposure or exposure from like a lot of these tanning beds, tanning salons, and everything else. Hey, Jose, thank you for joining from that standpoint there. Nilo, thank you for joining. So that's a concern for us, right? Because you can't really avoid, right? You can't really avoid the sun. The sun is there. So what can we do, right? Kendra, thank you for joining. What can we do for protection of the sun, right? Because, we got to protect our skin. Like I said, I just told you, most common cancer in the United States by far. And it's so much there's more skin cancer diagnosed on a yearly basis than everything combined. When I say everything, I'm talking about prostate, I'm talking about breast, and these things get a lung, all of these things that we hear about, especially in the news, which gets a lot of popularity in the news. Skin cancer beats them all, and it's not even close, right? Rhonda, thank you for joining. So that's why we got to be really, really, hype when it comes to cancer. Again, you should be hype about skin cancer, but you should be hype about making sure you protect yourself from skin cancer, right? Because there's easy things that we can do to kind of prevent skin cancer, right? Very easy things we can do, right? One, wear sunscreen, right? And I get a lot of questions of what type, SPF. As long as it's 15 and above, you should be about fine. Now, there's certain areas where it's on the face, you can't wear certain numbers, but it'll tell you that on the bottle. But sunscreen is extremely important. Trying to cover up is extremely important as well. The big thing for us is definitely, trying to avoid severe, or not say severe, let's say excessive amounts of UV radiation, especially for people who do these tanning, who are in these tanning salons, tanning beds, who like to tan out in the sun, because the risk of getting skin cancer increases almost 3-4 fold for people who get multiple amounts of sunburn, right? So if you get a whole bunch I think it was 5, I think the number was 5. If you have a history of 5 sunburns in the past, your increased risk of skin cancer jumps up completely, right? That's crazy, right? Me personally, you gotta worry about me. I try to avoid the sun. I'm in South Florida, right? And hey, Dr. Cantris. Oh, Dr. Cantris. Oh, great. My dermatology friend, she's actually triple boarded. Dermatology friend is on the line. So if there's any questions, feel free to ask her while we got her here, because she's a very busy person. So what do I say? Oh, so, again, I try to avoid the sun like the plague, right? So, I'm probably not going to get too much issues as far as from a UV radiation, but that doesn't mean I'm not protected, right? I'm going to talk about us, right? Because there's this, I was on Twitter the other day, and someone said something like African Americans don't need sunscreen, right? And I was like, it's crazy, right? So I actually asked Dr. Kendrice, and she quickly answered that question. So we'll talk about, why even as an African American you need sunscreen, right? And it sounds crazy, but it shouldn't sound crazy. But for some reason, there's this rumor that thinks African American people don't need sunscreen or can't get skin cancer, right? And we're gonna kill that all today before the end of this live stream show. So we talked about the risk factors, family history of skin cancer, of course, puts you at a higher risk of getting it. People of lighter natural skin color, people of blue and green eyes, blonde and red hair. These are just certain risk factors that we've seen that a majority of people, if you tend to have that, you have an increased risk of getting skin cancer in general. Now, from the numbers standpoint, right, who is going to be more affected from skin cancer? It's going to be white men. It's going to be white women, right? Because that's, the majority of them. Because again, what did I talk about when I talked about these risk factors? I talked about lighter skin, white men, white women. I talked about blonde hair, red hair, white men, white women. And I talked about this excessive amount of UV radiation. Remember, 90% of cancer from UV radiation is due to 90% of the non-melanoma skin cancer is due to that, right? So that's a problem we got to take care of ASAP. That has to be taken care of as soon as possible. So these are ways that we need to kind of protect ourselves. So let's kind of segue into, I'm African American, because that's what I usually do a lot of these things for, right? What's the problem, right? What's the problem in our African American community in terms of skin cancer and, just our bias in this of skin cancer, right? So first, let me talk about some of our biasness, even for me, that I had kind of growing up, even before I got educated and, I guess, quote unquote, wise, right? I used to think because I was black, right, I didn't really need to deal with, I didn't have to worry. Skin cancer was one of those things I wasn't having to deal with. I thought I was going to have to deal with some other things, lung cancer, all those other things. So I thought that might have been a concern. But I figured skin cancer was going to be on the bottom of the list I needed to worry about. The reason why is because we hear that, people of, and again, I just told you, people of lighter skin, people of lighter pigment, don't have the protection, which is melanin, for those who are aware, that, black people have, right? We have more melanin, so we should have more protection, right? But studies have shown that, that we don't even know we got plain melanin. And again, for those who know me, I'm about as dark as they come, right? And we just don't produce enough melanin in our skin, right, to protect us from the amount of radiation that we get on a daily basis from, just being out in the sun, driving in the car, and, just kind of, being out from that standpoint, right? So that's a problem, right? And then these were some concerning things, right, that I found out, right? So I said, when I talked about the 4 types of skin cancers, right, I said, melanomas is, even though it occurs the least amount, like again less than 1%, right, is the deadliest, right? So what happens in us, right? We African Americans are more likely to be diagnosed with melanoma at a later state, right? So we're already talking about the worst of the worst skin cancers, right? And what happens? We get diagnosed at a later stage. A lot of it is because we're not checking ourselves, and we're very reluctant to check ourselves from that standpoint as well. Not only do we get diagnosed at a later stage, when we do get diagnosed, it's at a a worse prognosis as well, right? So by the time they do diagnose me, right, with this skin cancer, which is usually melanoma, unfortunately, we're at a worse prognosis than other groups, right? White, Hispanic, Asian, Indian. So again, we gotta do better from that standpoint. There, we have the lowest overall survival rate, right? Again, this is what concerns us, right? Like we're getting these diseases and we're not even making it. Right, we're not even we're by the time we get it, it's already, we're already getting written off, right? Because we're in medicine, the earlier the better, right? That's when I preach prevention, and in medicine, the earlier the better. And the problem is when it comes to skin cancer, and mind you, remember this is Skin Cancer Month, right? It's Skin Cancer Month, so if you're not hype about getting your skin checked during Skin Cancer Month, I'm not sure when you're gonna get hype, right? So let's get hype for this month, right? So in skin cancer disease, we're getting diagnosed at a much later rate than anybody else, right? I mean, so that's the problem, right? We're just trouble just kind of aboard plays with us, right? And again, another fun fact for my black people watching this video, yes, you can get sunburned, right? So sunscreen is for you as well, right? There is no sunscreen that's for everybody, every other population but us, right? We need sunscreen just like everybody else. Some people recommend wearing it every day. I'm not sure if Dr. Kendrice has a comment on that. I'm not sure if I can wear sunscreen every single day. But there's some studies out there that say we should be doing it on a day-to-day basis. Not sure if I'd go that far, but we can have Dr. Kendrice if she wants to add a comment on that. Yes, I see a comment. That's too funny. What did we say? For dark-skinned people, we are more susceptible, and again, this is something I had to read. We're more susceptible to acrolentigenous melanoma, right? And I didn't know what this was before, I read this up, but apparently that's what Bob Marley passed away from, right? And this actually can affect the palms of our hands, the soles of our feet. And when we're of darker skin, we're more susceptible to that specific one as well, right? So if 2 things you get from this mention from me, especially this video today, I want you to get that. 1, skin cancer is not to be played with, right? It is the most common form of cancer here in the United States. Like I said, it's killing prostate, it's killing lung, it's killing breast, it's killing all of those combined on a year-to-year basis. And then number 2, especially for my African American people who are watching this, if you did not think you needed if you did not think you needed sunscreen today, please change your mind, right? We got to change that ASAP, right? So what do I do? So I've gotten all this information. Now I'm scared about skin cancer. What do I do, Barry? What do I do? Maybe I don't have a dermatologist. Maybe I can't get into a dermatologist. I'm actually going to put a website at the end of this link here that there's a lot of free skin cancer check organizations, like most likely in your community, right? Like I checked it for South Florida. There's like 5 of them. There's one in Broward, there's one in Boynton, there's one in Palm Beach. So there's everywhere. Right? There's people who will check your skin for free just to make sure everything is looking well and like it's supposed to, right? So please, no excuse, right? No excuse to not get your skin cancer stuff taken care of. This is something, especially from African Americans, that we can, that we're dying. Not dying at a higher rate than our the white men, white women, but we're dying just as bad, right? So we need just as much assistance in trying to prevent anything from happening from that standpoint too.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Lunch and Learn with Dr. Barry. If you want to find out more about the episode, please go to www.lunchlearnpod.com. That's www.lunchlearnpod.com for the show notes and any links that may have been mentioned in today's episode. If you're interested in joining the Lunch Learn Pod community, head over to either the website lunchlearnpod.com or join us on Facebook and Twitter with the same username, Lunch Learn Pod. And again, you can find all of these links on the website. If you have any questions, any comments, or any requests for topics to debut on the show, please let that be known. And don't forget to use the hashtag LunchLearnPod when you're listening to the episode. Again, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to today's episode, and I'll see you next week.